This is This Week in Perspective with me, Adam Simbeye. Next week, from the 21st to the 26th, Human Development Innovation Fund, HDIF, jointly with the Commission for Science and Technology, COSTECH, will be organizing an Innovation Week with a series of events on the theme, Innovation into Action, for the purposes of sharing innovation ideas that make a positive impact on human development. Some of the topics during the week will include the principles and into practice, tools for tackling digital development, the role of the technology and innovation in enhancing learning for the young generation, innovation spaces as drivers of youth employment and growth, empowering, educating, elevating women and girls through innovations, technology and innovation, providing safe and inclusive sanitation solutions, and bring inclusive access to safe water for Tanzanians. This will be attended by HDF stakeholders and invited members of the public. So, with me to discuss the planned Innovation Week are, on my right, Gertrude Mapunda, who is representing DFID, Human Investment Team. Next is David MacGinty from HDIF, that's the Human Development Innovation Fund. On my left is Dr. George Shemdoe from COSTECH, that is a principal researcher there. Last but not least is, I think, a young man, Jumanne Mtambalike from Sahara, yeah? Oh yeah, Sahara Services or Sahara Investment? Or
Sahara Ventures.
All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the program. I appreciate you participating today because gender imbalance has been my problem all through. So, I thank God the last 4 programs I've had the imbalance kind of, played around, and we've had a lady on the program. So I hope this will be continuous. And David, welcome to the program. And to Tanzania, as it were. The rest, all right? So, let's start to discuss the question or the topic on the table, Innovation Week. And of course, the theme is known to you, innovation for action. Now, the viewers will want to know in advance, though the actual week is next week, what is this Innovation Week? What does it intend to achieve? And a series of other questions to try and answer this, because I know, David, you addressed a press conference yesterday. Now, it was both in the Swahili and English papers, so they'll have an idea of what this is. But with the largest viewers of this program in English, I think the word will spread much wider. Okay? So, as usual, start with you, David. What is Innovation Week? What is it intended to be achieved?
So this is the 4th year that we've hosted Innovation Week alongside COSTECH. The purpose is to bring people together who either are or care about entrepreneurship, technology, development, and research and science, to help them network together, to share ideas, find partners, and find funding. And so anyone who's one of those things or wants to be one of those things and is interested to find other people, this is a place where you can come. And the ultimate goal is that while the country has Saba Saba and Nane Nane, where's the big national convening around the future, around cross-cutting innovation, technology, how to translate research into practice. And that's what we're trying to do, is really raise the profile for doing things different, for challenging the status quo. And COSTECH is a great partner through Innovation Week to help do that.
Is there on record what innovations have been initiated or developed or put in practice?
Sure. Well, this is more a place where you'll find some people showcasing their innovations. So there'll be over 30 events this year with over 20 partners who will all be showcasing innovations from, like airing on TBC, Obongo Learning's Akili and Me program, which is an innovation in education, to programs on using certain types of water filters and creating businesses around that. You'll also find startup hubs and incubators from universities, as well as independent hubs and incubators like the ones that Jumanne has run, coming together and figuring out how to capacity build and support people who want to be entrepreneurs. So I think there are examples of thousands of people who've come to the weeks who found more connections. We don't necessarily target that this is a place from which new ideas will be born. That's for people to go off and sort themselves.
But all these are recorded and shared?
Yes, of course.
All right. I'm still with you before I come to Dr. Shemdoe for COSTECH. I understand you have over 40 beneficiaries so far, isn't that so? Mm-hmm. How did you identify these and where are they located in Tanzania?
Sure. So the programs that we support, the apex, the ultimate goal is innovation. And so some of the innovations come from outside of the country in, some come from within the country out, some are a mix. And so the 43 programs that we support are across the country. Some are research institutions and academics like Nelson Mandela or Apopo, which is a research institution based at SUA. Some are local NGOs or companies limited by guarantee like Obongo Learning or Shule Direct. And some are international organizations who are bringing a technology from somewhere else, like Dimaji or D-Tree, which bring health technologies into the country.
Okay, thank you, David, for launching the discussion. Dr. Shemdoe, maybe straight on, viewers will want to know, what is in it for COSTECH in this whole innovation project?
Yeah, actually, as you know, the Commission for Science and Technology is mandated to promote science, technology, and innovation. So this week is very important for us as we showcase some of the innovations. And as you know now, the agenda which we are having now is industrialization in this country. So we hope innovations will play and contribute very much into achieving the national industrialization agenda.
Okay. The only lady shouldn't be bypassing you because I'll get complaints. Well, you give a lady the last chance to speak. You'll be last, all right? Although the discussion continues. Gertrude, you come from DFID Human Investment Team. Are you directly investing into the innovation projects which David runs?
So the DFID Human Investment Team, this is the team that is overseeing the DFID works on education, water, health, social protection, and of course youth and innovation being part of it. So yes, we're directly funding the Human Development Innovation Fund, and with main purpose to really promote innovation in the areas of health, water, and education, with an aim of sort of maximizing and social impact in those areas. And so DFID is putting about £39 million into this project.
Directly to
HDIF.
Through COSTECH.
To HDIF, and they work with COSTECH as well, and with then also providing funding to all these 43 partners that are either piloting or scaling up different initiatives that are being implemented in the country. And the idea is really to test some of these and seeing whether to what extent they either improve services in water, education, and health, or we bring in new technology and therefore improve efficiency on how we're delivering services, or quality of services that is being offered. So, for example, innovations in water filters sort of helps to remove sort of fluorine that is harmful to human bones. But also what is important there is the business model around that not only providing employment, but also seeing how that innovation can make change for a community as large. And so that's why we are sort of supporting, because in a way doing this, it accelerates social impact and development.
Okay, I'll come to David after Jumanne. There are a couple of questions. And Jumanne Mtambalike, what is in this for your company or your organization?
That's a very interesting question. So, as I said, my name is Jumanne Mtambalike. I'm the CEO and founder of Sahara Ventures. Our company being part of the innovation ecosystem in which David was talking about, where it is composed of supporting organizations such as DFID, accelerating partners such as Human Development Innovation Fund, startup companies, and of course public agencies such as COSTECH and Dar es Salaam Technoama Business Incubator. Basically, our role is to try to complement each other with the aim of creating an avenue, a platform whereby young people can be able to get opportunity through innovation, digital platform, and access to quality entrepreneurial programs and activities. So, as I said, it's an ecosystem for a company like Sahara Ventures, in which our priority focus is to accelerate startup and provide a platform for them to showcase what they're working on. It's very, very relevant to have an ecosystem, an organization such as Human Development Innovation Fund, which is basically there to try to see if they can fund some of those innovations so that they can scale to the next level or attain the impact that our sister here was saying, which can automatically create impact to our local communities. So basically our role is to make sure we partner and work with this kind of organization and play our specific role of focusing mainly in nurturing, building capacity, and giving access to these young entrepreneurs who run their businesses to fund, to potential mentors, to potential investors, and people who can help to accelerate their growth.
Okay, I understand, of course, through reading various materials, that the gap in terms of access to ICT and knowledge about ICT as far as women are concerned, it hasn't been filled yet. Is this true?
Yeah, and a lot has been done. I know personally as an organization, we've been doing a lot of activities with different partners to try to bridge the gap. You have organizations such as She Calls for Change, whom we designed their curriculum to teach young girls in school. We're also working with an organization called Apps and Girls, whom are doing an amazing work in terms of promoting women on a digital sector, but also as an individual at a personal level. I remember when I was working with COSTECH at Boone Innovation Hub, we started the first ladies community at Boone called Boone Divas to encourage more young women to opt for technology. So the gap is there, but a lot of work has been done and is continued to be done to try to see how we can bridge the gap by first developing inclusive technologies that encourage participation of all social groups, including men and women, but also adapting an approach whereby we put the user at the center of the design process, in which most of the time, depending with an innovation which you're developing, you have to consider women because they're a central part of any production process of any community. So the gap is there, but I think there's a lot of effort and things that have been done to improve that, and we're heading somewhere.
Any chance that the gap will be filled or reduced? to some extent?
It's being reduced to some extent, because I can tell you by fact, I was working with Costech from 2011 to 2015. When I joined Costech in 2011, I remember my former Director General, Dr. Mapunda, usually whenever I come to Boone Innovation Hub, in which I was the first hub manager, his first concern was, where are the ladies? There are no ladies in this room. Where are they? It's a bunch of young men coding, making application, building their own startup, but I don't see ladies. But right now, I can tell you there are a number of young ladies who are running their own successful technology company. You have the like of Lillian McCoy, she's running Jamie Africa, which is a very innovative tech product for the health sector. You have the like of Rose Funja, she's running a company, AgriInfo. I have two female co-founders at my accelerator, Sahara Accelerator, running a company called Meritorious Professionals. You have two other young girls who are running a company called Maisha Package. So we see this happening now. It used not to be that way. It used to be a bunch of young boys meeting and forming digital companies, but right now we see more involvement of young girls and women forming their own startup and ventures.
Are these girls confined to Dar es Salaam, or
that's
you
a very
have
interesting question.
You have rural women involved in this? Because that's it.
There are some few interesting stories from rural, not necessarily from the tech companies. They run companies outside tech, they're innovative companies, but there are very, very few stories from rural areas where you see young women or young girls are coming up with tech-related products.
Are these case studies, I would call, being recorded, and can they be accessed?
It's very interesting, actually. So one of our missions that we are trying to do is Sahara Ventures, as a company, but also at an individual level. We're trying to cover stories. We're trying to share this story. I blog a lot. I think I share every week I share at least one blog post to tell these interesting stories so that people can be able to know and hear about them. And again, documentation is very important as a part of the growth of the whole innovation ecosystem. So we are playing our role in terms of sharing information out there. But also, I think Human Development Innovation Fund is also doing a very interesting work in terms of putting together different resources. I think they map out the Tanzania innovation ecosystem, which is very resourceful if you're looking for information about what is happening in the innovation ecosystem. They have a number of publications on overall progress of their startups, which is very encouraging since other startups can learn and explore challenges that others are facing so that they can be able to mitigate them. So I think most of this work is documented. I think what needs to be done is to encourage more young people to access this information because it's more relevant for them.
Who will encourage them?
First is us, which I'm playing that role, but I think also mainstream media like TBC. I think this is the right time to encourage this kind of content. As Dr. Shemdoe was saying, the government is pushing for industrialization, but there's no industrialization if there's no technology. People are speaking about smart industry now. We are speaking about fourth industrial revolution, and we don't want to go back into brick and mortars of 18th century. We want to incorporate more technology because that is where we're heading.
Thank you very much, Dr. Jumanne Mtambalike. I come back to you, David. It seems to me that the concentration, and indeed referred to by Gertrude, is on education, on health, education, water, I suppose it's clean water, sanitation, as well as hygiene. Now, why only this specific area?
Yeah, so our funding comes from DFID, which funds in those specific areas. But innovation and technology that we encourage in the country is much broader. So you could say that our mandate is as broad as Costech's mandate. And most of Costech's support directly and then through INFAST, the National Fund for the Advancement of Science and Technology, is in agriculture, agribusiness. Rose Funja, who you mentioned, that's the application of drones and different technologies in agriculture that she's using. So the impact is much larger. And that's why I would say there's a need for a specific focus on innovation and technology broadly, because it's not just in one sector that You can have ICT as a sector itself, but ICT is something that cuts across every sector and can help extend the reach of an existing, very boring, old traditional product or service to the rural areas, to the poor, to and also increase the impact that you're having and can lower the cost of whatever your service you're offering. So the same way that technology can, innovation more broadly can do that as well. So certainly we fund health education at WASH, but the impact and the research and evidence we put out is much broader.
Dr. Shemdoe, I hope the viewers out there will understand what it's all about, this issue of Innovation Week. But what is innovation? I mean, do you innovate things which have already been developed, or what other words can you use to express exactly what is meant by innovation?
Okay, maybe in a few ways I can say that innovation, of course, is the application of a new product or new services to the society, but also that what we mean by new doesn't mean it is new in the world. It can come from somewhere else, but it's new in this other society. So if we apply that, then we are innovating. This is one, but also we say innovation also entails taking research and development results into the market so that it can serve the society.
Okay. David, some years back, and I think many years back, there was a concept of constructing or teaching people to build what they called VIP toilets as part of sanitation. Any idea what happened? I mean, it was a good innovation as well. What has happened? Is it still going on or not? Is an area that you look into?
Sure. So in sanitation, I can break it into some simple pieces. There's a lot of gadgets, I'd say, a lot of things. People come up with a solution, with a product. And like Gertrude was saying earlier, it's not just the product, but it's the business model that goes around the product. So currently, right now in sanitation, we would be talking about community-led total sanitation approaches, which look at not just that product, but the system that has to support it, the social norms that support it. And so a lot of the older gadgets in sanitation didn't have a full business model or systems type approach, so they may have been a good product, but they didn't go anywhere. So we certainly support lots of products, but I think sanitation is, maybe let me take this back. If you look at innovation in Tanzania, there are some existing industries where innovation would be relatively easy. Things that have lots of money, lots of stakeholders and partners, and contribute a lot of tax revenue and other things. You could think like mining and extractives, agribusiness. There's a lot of money and a lot of government support where you could just do some basic innovation, say in cultivation or seed innovations, and really revolutionize agriculture in the country. The further down you go into human development, or the more marginalized you get, the poor, the more rural areas, the more difficult it is because you don't have basic services. So I'd say the most extreme would be disability. So if you thought about individuals having mental or physical disabilities, it's hard to talk about innovation with them because there's so many lacking basic services just to get them included into society. So when we support something, we have some things that are low on the innovation radar. And so that would be like something in disability, which we fund some programs in disability around education. But you could go really high on the innovation quotient, and they look really cool and really shiny if you go into healthcare and agriculture and extractives, because there's enough money and stakeholders there to support it. So for your specific toilet, it's somewhere probably lower down where actually the innovation is not needed in more gadgets. It's needed in business models and partnering and getting policy. The policy framework and government engagement around sanitation in Tanzania and most countries is really complex. Ministry of Health, you have the Ministry of Water, you have local government, regional government, everybody gets involved in sanitation, and somehow it makes it very difficult to navigate.
As a follow-up question, sorry to keep on nailing you, David, because it's key, as it were. First, there are international organizations which are in the same business, but I haven't read anywhere literature that they're involved in your activities like water aid. Is it involved? How much? Second, sanitation is a big problem for the city of Dar es Salaam. A very, very big problem, particularly when it rains. And people open up whatever they do, the dirty water and for this, and there's spreading everywhere, and, with the potential to cause diseases, communicable diseases. Is this an area you're looking at? That was my second question.
Yeah, in fact, we did an entire funding round that was specifically targeting urban sanitation as an issue, because we recognize that even where there are stakeholders who are interested in it, they're not bringing new ideas to the area. And I won't call it a failure because we learned, but I'll say it was the most ambitious area where we tried to fund, and the area where we did not find a lot of good ideas to support. One where WaterAid has been involved in the past, SNV, Borda, which is a German organization, and some local entrepreneurs, is in something we call DWATs, which is Decentralized Water and Sanitation Treatment Centers. So instead of right now, there are 2 sanitation dump sites in Dar es Salaam, but you may have to drive 60 kilometers and sit in traffic for 2 hours if you're to go to the disposal point. Right. So how can you take, instead of having a massive place, how can you put in, at the ward level, a facility where people can collect waste from latrines or have a pipe system and then take it to these decentralized smaller treatment centers, and they can use the affluent, which is the waste that comes out. They can dry it and use it for fertilizer and other things. And you can also create biogas. So there's an example in Kigamboni from a long time ago that was DFID supported and supported by others with WaterAid involved, that now we're supporting through Borda and another consortium, including Ifakara Health Institute, looking at these decentralized, lower cost ways to deal with waste disposal. And I'd say, just as a final point, the reason it's a problem when it rains is because people don't think it's a problem when it's not raining.
They have to recognize.
Yes, they forget.
Problem first.
It dries up, everyone goes back to business as usual, instead of remembering that they had to walk in waste.
Typical of us, residents of this Dar es Salaam and this periphery. Oh dear. Does DFID have no problem in supporting financially these programs?
So problems in financing, we are in the business. We are sort of supporting government and partners in delivering services and improving services with an aim real of improving sort of health outcomes, education outcomes of people, and we are funded by the UK government. And as you know, sort of the UK government is committed to putting 0.7 of its GNP for development across the world. Now, as the economy is changing, of course, that money is not as enough. So in delivering services, it's not that we have no problem. We have a problem when it is not spent adequately or when it's not spent properly. And
or directed
where it is supposed to be going. And we know that sort of as countries also develop, like for example, Tanzania is aiming to come out of aid, then also UK aid equivalently will be reducing as government is able to raise its own revenues. And so in delivering aid, because we know that there'll come a time that these governments will not be giving aid more, we'd want it to be more effective, and therefore investing, like for example in innovation, is one way of making sure that we get the maximum impact of the little money that comes into countries like Tanzania. Because then we see that by doing so, we are able to deliver services faster and to majority of people, and that we could be then helping the country to get out of aid much sooner than perhaps would have been if we are not innovating.
Are you through?
Yes.
Yeah. Education is a key area in this country. And of late, there have been press reports, statements made by more or less top leadership here, and some academic, that we have a problem with the quality of education. Now, which specific area do you focus on? Because you have education, you have health, education, water, sanitation. Now, education is there, but which area of education?
So in education, we are looking at improving quality of education, and primarily we are looking at primary education. And sort of specifically looking at the pre-primary, so pre-primary, primary 1, 2, and 3, as that's an area that when you build the foundations, then you are having a high success chance of those going up in the education system have ability to learn, and you are better able to improve your learning outcomes. And that's where we are focusing. And we are working on education through different ways. So our support, for example, on innovation is trying to see what are the innovative approaches there can be developed that will enable children to better able learn at a more maybe faster way or cost-effective, wherever they are. So, for example,
taking into account the environment.
Taking into account the environment. So, for example, the Akili ni Mi, which is the Ubongo cartoon program, is targeted to children year 3 to 6, and there it's learning by sort of playing, which helps kids to develop their counting ability, their reading, sort of their counting ability, their
what they call in Swahili the KK?
The KK, yes, and motor skills as well, because they're engaging with that program, and a rigorous impact evaluation has been done and shown that it's actually improving children capability in those areas. But we're also supporting the Education for Result program, which is implemented by Government of Tanzania, and this is nationwide program. And also we have an education quality improvement program that is targeted in 9 regions of the country, which have least performance in education outcomes. This program
is one of them.
No, Lindi is one of them. Mtwara wasn't, because by the time these assessments were done in 2013, 2012, you had 10 bottom performing, so Lindi wasn't. Mtwara wasn't, but Lindi is. So we have Lindi, Kigoma, Singida, Shinyanga, Simiyu, Mara.
Not Mbeya and Songwe.
Not Mbeya and Songwe. And now we have added Tabora and Katavi.
Oh dear.
Yeah, so, but targeted really at sort of the pre-primary, improving learning quality and also education system within those levels.
Okay, before I get to Dr. Shemdoe, the last but not least of the questions I want you to look at. So, is Tanzania given a top priority among the other countries in terms of funding in these specific areas?
So,
is it a priority?
It is.
DFID,
Tanzania is a priority. So Tanzania is our 5th largest country in terms of the amount of money that it receives from the UK government. With the first ones being, I think, is Pakistan, Nigeria, Ethiopia, Afghanistan, and then Tanzania. So we're quite high up, and UK allocation to Tanzania is to the tune of 168 million pounds per year. So it's quite a substantial amount of money.
Yes,
Can I help support your
Yeah.
statement? But also, this type of program within DFID is unique.
Yeah.
So while Tanzania may rank at that level, in the top with DFID, there's no other country in which they have an innovation program.
Yeah.
So usually the donors will do these. They may be large, but they'll be like global programs. For example, there's one called the Global Innovation Fund, which is great, but it doesn't get its hands dirty. It doesn't get into the local ecosystem, understanding the stakeholders, understanding the context. And so within DFID, and I would say in most donors,
Yeah.
except the Finns are pretty good at this
Exactly,
work
yes,
in
yeah.
innovation. And it's usually smaller programs. So HDIF is a massive program to be involved in focusing only on one country, based in the country, staffed mostly by Tanzanians. I think they're 3 out of 20 of us are not Tanzanian. And really embedded with a government partner with the aspiration that COSTECH and other government partners can take on this work. So DFID is, through HDIF, supports COSTECH to do innovation ecosystem work, supports COSTECH to do fund management for innovation in addition to more basic research and research into practice, and to support COSTECH in knowledge mobilization, we call it, which is like helping influence policymakers and funders with evidence from innovation and technology.
But also targeting in the sectors that might be, which I priority for the government of Tanzania, education, health, and water. I really prioritize, and it's an area that if you can invest on innovation and bring in new ways of working or products that can help improve services, you will have massive impact in the country. And it's an area that you are likely not to have people wanting to put their resources behind because the risk of failure is high. And therefore,
the risk of losing some money.
Well, it's not so you lose money because you know on an innovation, and David will correct me. It's
no
not
guarantee.
always that you
There's
have
no
a guarantee of a
that,
success because you may be starting something that may fail, and therefore, and in sectors like education, health, and water, the failure may not only be on the project itself or the idea itself. The failure will be on that idea being able to be adopted and scaled up because essentially innovation in areas like this would need to be integrated into public systems and maybe in private sector taking it up and taking it to scale. But that is a gambling. It's not something that you have an absolute guarantee that if I'm innovating on this new water technology that perhaps helps with the payment of the water system, government will take it and roll it across the country, roll it out across the country. Because when they do that, it's a big buck for me for the money that we've invested, but there's no a guarantee. But also there's no guarantee that that will be a successful investment. So David would have put money there, and they'll come to me and say, well, we have maybe 40 projects that we've put money behind. We have a likelihood of 60% being successful and proceeding or can be sort of scaled up. These 45% have a likelihood of a failure. Are you happy? Can you take this?
It's not necessarily a trial and error.
It is a trial and error.
In fact, she's saying 60%. I say, no, let's make the number lower.
Exactly, yes. It's a trial and error because he has absolutely no guarantee whether this will be successful or not. And he's got to be saying, no, I want less than sort of 60%, and I'm pushing for 60%, because I want him to be much more ambitious, to be much more robust on his scrutiny, on who they are bringing on the board, that they are supporting, and the mechanism they put behind make sure that projects are successful. But it's really a gambling area. If there's gambling, that's a big gambling area that people will put. And this is maybe the reason why you don't have many especially sort of in like specific in-country innovation because the risk of failure is high.
How much involvement is there, Dr. Shemdoe, with the private sector and maybe selected few academic institutions in all this sort of innovation? Because I'm sure at the academic level, you have young men there who are sharp and bright, and they come up with the innovations here, which I think COSTECH started giving presents and accepting these innovations for further promotion.
Yeah, maybe let's say in the area of innovation ecosystem in the country, we are still at the infant stage, and we are trying to build that up. For example, at COSTECH we established the Boon Hub. This is a technology entrepreneur hub, and since 2011, through a project which was known as Tanzania City, and now at least the Boon Hub has developed the capacity on how to establish these hubs and how to run them. So that one hub cannot cater for the whole country. So COSTECH has started a program to start establishing these hubs in other universities. So our aim for this year, we wanted to establish about 10 hubs in 10 universities. So far, so good. I think we have already covered around 8. The aim is that, as you said, there are young people in these universities or around also the cities where these universities are, who they can come up with innovation, but all of them cannot come to Dar es Salaam. So by establishing these innovation hubs in those universities, they can get that service where they need it.
One villager developed a helicopter.
Yes. In Song.
Did you take that? Did you take that as a very important new innovation? I don't know whether
It's the issue of helicopters. Actually, up to now, I think I'm having around 3 cases.
and they've not left the ground yet.
Yes, and the one, of course, this one which was very popular from Songwe.
Yes.
This
My
guy managed to make it lift, but then he had the problem of bringing it down.
Oh.
So
Once it took off,
he had to
he
shut
couldn't
the
bring it down.
engine off, and it just bumped. Pop.
Typical. You switch off engine, it becomes.
Yes,
It's long, it comes down.
yeah. So actually, this is. Of course, we tried to sit with that gentleman, and what actually we were trying to do is he's very innovative from the level of education which he has. So, but we tried to somehow to convince him, why don't you do some other innovations which solves problems around the communities?
But he might have thought having a helicopter,
Yes.
you'll be able to fly, to lift pregnant women who can have direct access to a maternity because of the flooded area and the health center so far.
Yes.
So that would be one of
the solutions.
All right.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Jumanne. So, very briefly, I see time is running out. Has ICT got a role, if any, in innovation and, of course, the government agenda for industrialization?
Very interesting. As David said, technology is a tool, actually. And by technology, I mean ICT. ICT is basically a tool. It's cutting across. It's bringing health services closer to people. Is helping people to attain better education through programs such as Ubongo Kid, Akinwa Show. So technology is a cross-cutting tool, and we cannot afford to move forward without putting a priority focus in technology. And by technology here, I mean we shouldn't confuse between technology and communication, because that's one big of a challenge that we're facing right now. The growth of communication in this country is very good. The penetration is almost above 80% of mobile phone users. But technology-wise, we are lagging far behind, and there's a lot of work that needs to be done, starting by supporting organizations such as our organization, creating more innovation spaces, investing more on young people to come up with digital tools, because that's where the world is going right now. We already know the market is saturated. Young people are getting into the job market every year, and jobs are not there. And technology can be one of the tools to help us address those challenges. And now linking technology with industrialization, I think as we're discussing about industries, the investment to form a huge, massive brick and mortar industry, there is no use in Tanzania or in Africa who can be able to start their own industry at that caliber or that scale. But I feel if we invest on technology such as 3D printing, digital manufacturing, or CNC milling machines, smaller technologies, then young people can be able to start their actual manufacturing industry at a small scale. They can be able to manufacture, they can be able to assemble phones, they can be able to assemble computers at a smaller scale. And in order for you to be able to do that, you need to embrace technology. So if we want
assembling
to yes.
Mtambalike is one thing, and in the process of assembling, you will be getting the basic parts, whatever, from outside the country. So I would have thought maybe we encourage people to to start making the raw materials to
it's-
build up.
It's very interesting. Even established countries in Europe and US, they still get their chip from Taiwan. So
From China.
from China and Taiwan. And again, we need to complement each other. It's economic. It's economic globalization. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. If someone is very good on doing that, you can support them to do what they do better, and then you do your own part. Because if you say right now we want to create chips for computers, it is not impossible, but it is not practical.
When you can order one very cheaply.
Yeah, and assemble and then sell it very quick.
But making use of
Yeah.
technology will require also getting good quality education.
Definitely.
That our people are well educated, and
This
therefore,
is where
yes, and this is why you could see
HDIF
HDIF
comes
is
in.
coming in. By coming it's education at all levels. We need to be
Yes.
getting people who are our children who are graduating at different levels of education with really good quality education that can apply at that particular level. You asked about earlier on sort of why girls are less on ICT. We're losing many girls as they're going up the education system. They complete in big numbers primary school, but that for majority that's the end of them.
And you still lose those
Exactly.
who take science and technology.
And yes, when they go up to secondary, very few take science subjects, which is what also determines whether they embrace technology and ICT or not. And so you find that sort of our sort of pipeline of students are finishing sort of different levels of education, goes quite small as it goes up the hierarchy. And so the question is, how do we increase that? Sort of those who are going up finish in big numbers, and they allow as many kids, girls, boys from poor families with disabilities who are able to embrace technology, can use it to improve, to employ themselves, to create employment, to do all sorts of things.
We have to reverse the pyramid.
Because
Because
you're dealing
it's
with
right
adults,
up
you're dealing with a
there.
Band-Aid.
Yes,
It's
yeah.
not fixing the
Yeah,
problem.
yeah.
But also I think one important thing also, we shouldn't forget girls out of schools. As she's saying, actually, already you have these who are going out of school, and then what are we doing with them? I think there's a huge need to design and develop more programs that equip young girls out of school with digital skills, basic digital skills like to use social media platform and Web 2.0 tools to at least first to be connected to the main global world, but second to be able to design and come up with innovative business models that uses digital tool to enhance their businesses.
Jumanne, in the technology world, as a specialist, does it ever worry you that whilst ICT can create potentials, job creation, and cover so many people, in the long run, it can also stand in between creating jobs and taking more jobs, because the example of the what do you call this, the machines being done by robots. So when science and technology in Japan and the rest of it are coming up with the robots, there was one I got which was very interesting.
Actually, they call them cobots. So I think we can choose to be optimistic. And you have companies that are creating robots, but you have companies like Uber that's creating new drivers. You have companies such as Airbnb that allow people who cannot make money to use their houses to make more money. So, so as much as technology can be in a position to take some few jobs,
Yes.
it can be in a position to create more jobs.
Thank
and
you.
if we prepare our youth with a good
Yes,
education,
education,
then
yes, yes.
robots will never be able to defeat
All right,
them.
ladies and gentlemen, we have 5 minutes left, and within those 5 minutes, I have to kind of wind up and close. So, but usually, I ask the last question. It could be an opportunity or call it a challenge. So, let me start going this way. What do you think, therefore, the challenges ahead for the issue of innovation, particularly in the areas that HDIF is focusing: health, education, water, sanitation, and hygiene? Very quickly. One challenge will be enough.
I think, to me, it boils down to the knowledge, the skills that our academic institution is offering. For them to be able to fund this kind of project successfully, they need competent youths who have skills to come up with these innovations to be funded in the first place.
And these skills are getting recognized, isn't
Yeah.
it? So, very quickly, Dr.
Yeah,
Shemdoe.
the challenge which I think is in front of us is actually now to get the innovations. So, for example,
We need to get the ideas.
is the real innovations now. I
Yes.
think this is a challenge which I foresee.
Yes.
Yep.
Well, I suppose with the encouragement in schools, the program which you launch,
Yes.
maybe you get these ideas. Yes, David.
Yeah, so you could talk about this in two different ways, and some people talk about it as mentorship, and I'll say it as a mix of cross-generational mentorship as well as concentration of capital, whether it's in the private sector or in the government. So people who are of an older generation who have made it, who have money, centralizing that and investing it back in the future of the country, as opposed to investing it in business as usual or typical industries like building nice concrete structures.
Build capitals.
Yes, building buildings is wonderful, and it's great to see the skyline rising. But if there's a skyline and it's an empty building, or the youth are left out, or women
Or
and
very
girls
few
are
can
still-
afford them.
or very few can afford them, then what's the benefit to society of that concentration of wealth? And great economies are built off of concentration of wealth and power, seeing potential in the future generation.
By the way, I meant to ask you, but you can respond to it very quickly. How much is the private sector involved in your programs?
Yeah, in about 2/3 of the programs that we fund are either direct to the private sector or the private sector is a key partner. Everyone from the big groups like Voda and Tigo
Yes.
to small startup groups like
Yes.
Studi Academies or Shule Direct.
Yes.
Yeah.
So-
Or Gangali model, is really
Oh,
small
right.
in ownership.
Gertrude, one
I think
opportunity.
well, it's sort of a challenge and opportunity. I think we shouldn't fear innovation and embracing innovation, but adopting and encouraging innovation. I think among the failures that we are seeing in this country is the bureaucracy, that sort of the steps that someone has to go through before their ideas can be accepted and be used. It's just sort of that environment, that working with policy, but need to change. We need to be seeing that we're in a different world. It's a
You
fast-paced.
should be looking at Dr.
Yes,
Shemdoe.
I'm looking at it's a fast-paced world. I think the business as usual working style isn't going to be helping us. We'll be complaining that innovation is taking away, so technology is replacing jobs, but actually we should see it as a key important element of us delivering and working differently and creating a better environment for us all.
All right, my panelists. That's very, very interesting, and we should wind up now. But I'm sure the viewers out there have benefited a lot from your analysis of the situation and what will be happening next week. And I hope the general public, which you intend to be your target, plus government and public and policymakers, will follow the discussion the week next week, because you have a series of subjects and events that are going to take place. All right, but innovation is basic, is fundamental, and as Gertrude says, COSTECH should work hard to see that young people who are coming up with ideas, those ideas should not fade away. They should be taken into account. They should be developed and as well as promoted. Well, viewers, that's all we have for you today. Until next Sunday at the same time, and on Thursday at 15 hours for the repeat program. On behalf of my panel, Gertrude Mapunda, David MacGinty, Dr. Shemdoe, Jumanne Mtambalike, and my TBC television crew. Thank you, viewers, and goodbye.